Hello, and welcome back to Forgotten Hollywood in my living room. So, I was seeing a lot of articles about Hocus Pocus 2. Didn't have a lot of desire to watch it because I wasn't really a fan of the original, and the biggest claim that I was seeing to recommend it was nostalgia. Don't really have much nostalgia. I do have a black cat. But I kept seeing various articles talking about the highlights and the lowlights and a few things that they kept having to explain. And so I felt that this is a movie that should be addressed from the perspective of how well was the movie made. In order to do this, I had to watch the movie. As I have said before, I am not a fan of the original Hocus Pocus. The first movie was better. Just get that out there. There are a lot of issues with this, some minor details, some bigger things, but it would be too much to try to cover them all. So I'm just going to hit a few highlights to explain the problems with continuity, the problems with historic depictions, and some things that were just problems. First, starting with the continuity. And it jumped out at me right off the bat as the movie started in the year 1653, when the Sanderson sisters were children. Here's the problem. The date of their death was 1693, 40 years later. Okay, that could work if you look at how the witches appeared in the first movie, especially in the scenes in the 90s. They could easily be in their 40s. However, there is a big issue with that, and I actually rewatched the beginning of the first movie so I could just confirm that I wasn't remembering it wrong. But in 1693, the witches were old women. I'm talking wrinkled skin, gray to white hair, old women. And in 1653, Sarah Sanderson was about, 8? 9? And so you want me to believe that she was wrinkled and white-haired before she was 50? That just doesn't fit. My theory is that they completely forgot that the reason they murdered the child at the beginning was to make them younger. And Sarah even says, "We're young again!" And Winnie says, "Well, younger." That's why they wanted to kill the children. That was the whole point of all of that. And I think they forgot that little minor, major plot point when they wrote the second one, because they just said, "Oh, well, let's see. The actresses were in their late 30s, early 40s at the time, so we'll just put it back, 30, 40 years, and that'll work." Well, no, not unless you forgot the entire opening sequence of the first movie, which apparently they did. So the second issue with continuity is that there's this trend, and I've seen this in multiple movies, where they do something, and then in a later scene they do the same thing and make it into a joke. And gags don't work the second time around. For example, in the movie Cars, one of my son's favorite movies, there's a whole conversation between the race car Lightning McQueen and the tow truck Mater, where they're talking about the Piston Cup, the trophy for the big race in their world. Lightning is talking about how it was always his dream to win the Piston Cup, and he would be the first rookie in history to win the Piston Cup if he could just win this next race. And so it's this really big deal for him. A few scenes later, Lightning mentions that another character has won 3 Piston Cups. To which Mater replies, "He did what in his cup?" Okay, so that joke might have been funny the first time he ever said Piston Cup, But after explaining to Mater what the piston cup is, it just doesn't work. Because Mater should know that he's talking about a trophy. In Hocus Pocus 2, they do essentially the same thing. The witches are flying over Salem and they're trying to find their enemy, and Winnie says, "Spread out!" And so her sisters veer off and they start going and searching the city. Well, then they find the man's house. They go inside, and this is, like I said, this is a scene or two later. And Winnie says, "Spread out!" And Sarah starts spreading her legs and stuff. And I'm like, okay, clearly she already knew what spread out meant because she followed the instruction not 5-10 minutes before in the movie. So what are you doing? It's a gag for laughs, but it doesn't work. It doesn't fit because they already showed that Sarah knows what the word spread out means. The other thing I want to address is something I just read in an article today about how the director was explaining how people could watch the original Hocus Pocus movie in the sequel. And she said, well, the Sanderson sisters are well known and popular, and so they might have made a movie about them. Here's the problem with that. Yes, the Sanderson sisters are popular in Salem, and maybe a small independent studio might make a movie about the Sanderson sisters, just a low-budget thing, but it would not be the first movie, because no one except the, 3 people that were there know what happened that night. It's like an urban legend that they ever came back. So, making a movie about them coming back with all the details wouldn't happen. And this actually leads to one of the historic problems. You see, the witches were killed in 1693 in Salem witch trial kind of situation. And I don't know if the writers did any research at all into how the Puritans lived and how they handled witches and how they handled trials and executions and such like that. They did show that they hanged the witches, which was accurate. Yes, they did hang witches at the time, or people accused of witchcraft, I should say. But the thing is, they didn't do full color portraits of the condemned witches. They might do a sketch or a woodcut, but they wouldn't do a full portrait. So how does everyone in Salem know how the Sanderson sisters dressed, complete with color scheme, hairstyle, makeup? Again, only the 3 or 4 people that were there that night know what happened. And I highly doubt they went around telling everyone that they met the Sanderson sisters and they defeated them before daybreak. It's just a bit of a stretch, 5 steps beyond suspension of disbelief. Other historic problems that relate to not knowing anything about Puritans is they did not believe that spiders were demonic. That was not one of their superstitions, to my knowledge. The Reverend gets a spider on the sleeve of his jacket and he immediately panics, and the entire town panics because there is this spider. And had that happened to an actual Puritan minister, he probably would have gone and kept going. Spiders existed in Salem. They were all over the place. They didn't believe that they were devils. They didn't believe that the spiders could curse them. That was kind of a ridiculous detail to add. And I have no idea what they were thinking. Another historic problem in this movie, plot-wise, was the fact that the teenage girls trick the witches into thinking that they have potions by taking them to Walgreens and showing them lotions and creams that are labeled lotions. And they're labeled in English, and the witches can read English. And they're like, oh, it's a potion. It's got the souls of children. They would not have believed that at all. That whole lie would have just gone flat. Because, you see, the thing is, lotions have been around for so long that lotion jars were found in the tomb of King Tutankhamun. Ancient times. Thousands of years ago. They would know what lotion was in 17th century Salem. It would not be this magical, mystical thing. It would be something that people used. Well, the Puritans probably didn't use them because they were Puritans, but they would know what it was. Also, on the note of the witches not recognizing modern technology, even though they had memories of being in Salem in 1993, is the automatic doors, them thinking this was some amazing mystical thing. Automatic doors have been around since the 50s. Salem would have had them in 1993. They probably saw them. Beyond the historic and the continuity issues, there's things that are just problematic. And the first one, it might just be personal taste, though I have talked to other people who have said the same thing, that the songs are just awkward and spontaneous, and they don't really fit. They don't make sense in the case of the story. Even the characters talk about how they don't make sense. There's also the fact that the characters are almost all stupid and incompetent. Even the witches are just morons. You know, they're just easily fooled by the smallest lie that they really shouldn't have believed at all. And I've seen this actually in several movies recently, including some ones from the 90s, where it's just like, why did this competent character suddenly become a moron? And, you know, Winnie is not an idiot. Watch the first movie. I'm not a big fan, but I will say, Winnie is not an idiot. She should not have fallen for half the stuff she did in the sequel. They even dumbed down Sarah, which wasn't even necessary because she wasn't exactly brilliant in the first one. But they just dumbed down everyone. And that goes back to something I've said before, I'll say it again. You do not need to make one character, your main character, look better and competent by dumbing down everyone around them. It just makes it look like you don't know how to write a competent character if you have to dumb down everyone else to make them look competent. You should be able to have people be normal, intelligent people, and someone just be a little bit better if you want to do it that way. But you don't have to dumb down the entire cast to make one person look smart. Speaking of dumb characters, there was the magic store owner, Gilbert. He tells the story that back in 1993, when he was a little kid on Halloween night, he saw the Sanderson sisters fly across the sky. And his first instinct as this little boy is to follow the flying witches to a graveyard. Really? Would that really be your first instinct if you see witches flying in the sky on Halloween night toward a graveyard to be like, ooh, I want to go there. That looks like a best place to be. No, I would go the opposite direction. And then he becomes obsessed with bringing them back to the point where he's manipulating and tricking teenage girls to doing his bidding, which, you know, is not creepy at all. There is one redeeming factor of this movie. One shining light that I just really did enjoy. Billy. Billy the zombie. He was the best part of the first movie too. I actually, I called my sister who has watched both of these movies. I asked her, I said, am I just biased because it's Doug Jones? She's like, no, he was the best part of the movie. And she's not even a big fan of Doug Jones. She didn't know who he was. You know, he was the highlight of the movie. I didn't care for anyone else. Just Billy the Zombie. If Hocus Pocus 2 had been a movie all about Billy the Zombie, without the witches or without anything else, and just been Billy the Zombie got woken up and was trying to find a way to go back to sleep, that would have been a more enjoyable movie. I would actually watch that movie. Now that I've said it, I really wish that they had made that movie because that movie would have been so much better. In summary, there were just too many problems in Hocus Pocus 2 for me to even enjoy watching the movie, other than Billy. But he wasn't in all the scenes, so. The plot had issues, the continuity, the complete lack of historic knowledge, the fact that most of the characters were just complete morons, except the main three girls. It just didn't make for a great movie. Now, if you absolutely love the first movie and you love the witches, then yeah, maybe you might enjoy seeing the three of them flying around again. But when you don't have that nostalgia, it's just a stupid movie. Thanks for watching. If you like this sort of content, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Click the bell for notifications because YouTube is pretty notorious for, not telling people. Let me know if there's another thing you want me to review, especially current topics, because I'm always looking for something to talk about on a Monday. And I will catch up with you next time.